Fun and education. So seeds saved by home gardeners will probably be the result of random pollination. So you don't always know if, sometimes you can buy seeds at CD Saturday, and if you buy them from reputable dealers and they've taken some sort of care in making sure that they've isolated their squash and that sort of thing. But sometimes you get the general public saving seeds and they'll bring it into trade and stuff, and they might or might not have the knowledge to do this correctly. They might not realize that pumpkins cross with pumpkins. Now the Comox Valley Seed Savers group is really good, and they have all kinds of classes for their group and stuff like that, and so all their seed savers are really well educated. But sometimes you just get people and they're so happy that they've been able to save seeds themselves, they don't consider the ramifications of what happens when you trade the seed and someone tries to grow it and it just grows an inedible gourd when they wanted a pumpkin. So that can be really disappointing. Another thing that can happen is that a home grower can harvest seeds before they're ready. If you don't know when to harvest your seeds, and then the endosperm and the embryo isn't fully developed, so again, you could plant the seeds and they just wouldn't grow. So some plants make better candidates for seed saving than the other. So the common self-pollinated, non-hybrid, and purebred animal seeds that can be saved include lettuce, beans, peas, herbs, and tomatoes that are open pollinated, and tomatoes. So that's a good place to start, because these plants rarely cross-pollinate, just because of their flower structure, just because there's not a lot of else in their genus that you grow. So these guys are a good place to start.
Does that include spinach?
Spinach is harder.
Okay.
Spinach is harder. For one thing, you want to save your seeds from your very best, most beautiful, gorgeous plant. And I don't know about you, I have trouble growing big, beautiful spinach. It goes to seed just fine.
Yeah.
But you don't want to save the seeds from this dinky little spinach plant that with its last gasp put out some seeds. That's not the kind of parent you want for your baby spinach. So yeah, and besides that, spinach has male and female plants. So they're on separate plants. Male flowers are on separate plants than female flowers. It tends to be one of the more complicated ones.
Okay.
Not impossible, just maybe not start from the beginning with spinach because you might be disappointed. So saving seed saves money, allows the gardener to maintain varieties that are not sold commercially. And avid seed savers belong to groups, and it'd be great to form a group like that in the Alberni Valley. I know that you do have a CD Saturday here, and to encourage and support that and trade seeds with people here.
I know that our library has a seed bank.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The library here has a
I don't
seed
know if
bank.
it still continues.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was involved with setting it up.
Oh,
With, yeah, Dan Schubart was about the only person that was really contributing
What
to it.
about Charles also did
Yeah,
some stuff?
but it's nobody's using it.
Yeah, and you have to refresh your seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. A great idea, but it does need a lot. I was wondering about that,
Yeah,
how it was gonna
it seemed like a
maintain.
great idea, but people just weren't using it.
Yeah, right. So it may be tempting to bring home seeds or plants on vacation, but sometimes that results in disease or insect transfer. Even, I was tempted to bring some stuff home from New Zealand, then I noticed the little acorn that I had a little hole in it, which means that probably there's an insect living in it. So.
Not good.
And a non-native plant can become a noxious weed. A great example is the broom plant, right? Somebody brought a few seeds because they missed seeing it from their native Scotland.
Yeah. English ivy.
Yeah.
It's all over the
English ivy, yeah. and we had a discussion at lunch about invasive plants, and you know, there's too many plants maybe on the invasive list, but there are some really noxious ones. Japanese knotweed is a great example of a really noxious. Mind you, that's edible in some stages. The young shoots of Japanese knotweed is edible. And that's another thing. The other thing I think we should do with noxious weeds and invasive weeds, I have goat seed them and turn them into ethanol. Why can't we turn invasive weeds into ethanol like broom? Like I even have an advertising click for it. Broom, broom, broom!
Drive your car with broom.
I think we should spearhead that project.
I like that.
You know, I mean, why can't we think out of the box? You know, I don't know why we're going, like they say about Alexandria Cortez in the States, well, she's too young. Well, who cares how young she is, as long as she's got great ideas and lots of energy to put them forward. Like, who cares if she's too young? It just makes me annoyed when people can't change and think outside the box and keep moving forward. So it's important to save seeds from your best and most healthy plants. Some diseases are actually carried in seed, and commercially grown seed is produced under really strict conditions, so it's probably unlikely to have problems. But if you're saving your seeds, you do need to save them from your best, biggest, healthiest plants with the most desirable characteristics. So again, if you're after lettuce, you want to save seeds from your biggest, tastiest lettuce plant, and the one that has shown no signs of insect or disease damage. And that's the one we're tempted to eat, right? But that's the one you need to save for seeds, whereas the little one that went to seed really quick, you know, put out 3 or 4 leaves and then bolted the seed, you know, it's tempting to save the seed from that because, oh, there's the seed right there. But that's the crummy little plant that you don't want to reproduce. So harvest seed just before the fruit is fully ripe, and for flowers with exposed seed, place the seed or stalk or flower head in a bag and store in a warm, dry location. So what you can do if it's very close to being ready is you can cut the plant. I've even cut like bean plants when it looks like, you know, the pods are there and they're starting to dry on the bean plants, and so the seeds are almost ready. And it looks like it's going to rain. Well, I don't want those beans to be exposed to the rain because then they might sprout or they might mold. And so I gather the bean plants and hang them upside down, put them someplace where it's really dry and there's good air circulation, and then the plant will continue to translocate all its nutrients into more fully developing the endosperm and the embryo. So it'll just do that almost in a panic mode. But so seed of pulpy fruits should be separated from the pulp by using a blender, then washed and thoroughly dried. Either a blender or that fermentation process that we talked about with the tomatoes. But if you say wanted to plant rose hips, is a great example. If you want to plant wild roses, what you would do is you would take the rose hip, which is the fruit of the rose, you'd put it in a blender with a bunch of water, you'd blend it up, and that would help separate the pulp, and then you would ferment it like the tomato seed, and then wash it and dry it, surface dry it, and then you could plant it. If you planted it outside, it would go through natural stratification, so it would break the other dormancy.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I had this cucumber, and I'd never grown cucumber before, and I kept waiting for this cucumber to get a little bit bigger and to eat it, because I was like, what I knew cucumbers to be from the grocery store was longer and bigger, and so it actually kind of overdeveloped and turned yellow, and I was like, oh well, I'll just save the seeds out of it. So I just kind of sliced them and put them in the dehydrator, and so like thin slices, and so I kept the seeds kind of dehydrated like that. Do you think that'll work?
And it depends. I mean, the standard answer in horticulture is always, it depends. It depends actually how ripe that cucumber was. It depends on whether, again, if it was a plant, I mean, some cucumbers only do produce little
Yeah,
cucumbers.
That's what it was. They were just little cucumbers, and I just kind of hadn't twigged. I was waiting
Yeah.
for something else, and
Yeah, and there's actually either round cucumbers that are yellow, they're called lemon cucumbers, and lots of people really like growing those. I personally don't think they're all that great.
I don't like them.
Oh, good, I'm glad to hear some other growers saying that.
I just don't think they got a market for that. It's kind of a weird thing to grow.
No, I don't like them.
Yeah, weirdness.
Some people really like them, but I don't.
Yeah.
And so anyway, if it was meant to be a yellow cucumber, maybe it wasn't actually fully mature, so, I mean, there's just so many variables. I would say give it a try.
okay.
You know, seed it in a little pot, and then I wouldn't seed it out in your garden, because then again, you're using up space that might be used for something else if it doesn't
Wouldn't
work.
kind of soak it first to rehydrate that little.
I would just plant the whole thing.
Okay.
You know, I would just plant the whole thing and see what happens, cover it with a little bit of soil and see what happens.
I did try one slice in one of those little jiffy heat bag things, and
Now, I
I've had
personally
no
hate
action.
Jiffy pots. How do you feel about Jiffy pellets?
I never use them.
Yeah, I don't like them. I personally don't like Jiffy pellets. And I know, like Anna Lewis, she just thinks the sun rises and sets over them. She just starts everything. I mean, and she's very
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
I tried doing the same thing, everything dies.
so I've had like a probably 85-90% success on my tomatoes, and like every single one of my squashes has come up so far. This is the first time I've ever tried them, but I'm
Yeah.
actually shocked by how much,
Mm.
because again, they're just sitting in my window. I don't have any grow lights on them, and I'm just kind of pumped actually.
Well, germination is the easiest part. Just saying. You know, and that's cool, you know, you get germination, but that's just the first of many hurdles that the
Yeah.
plant will have to go through before you actually get
Yeah.
something from it. Don't get discouraged, but don't have sky high expectations
No,
either. Like, don't be crushed if they
But
don't
compared
make it.
to my epic failure last year, at
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
seeds, I'm just like, woo!
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it is every year you learn something.
Yeah.
Right, every year you learn a little bit more. I mean, I think that's what keeps farmers going, is they say, oh, well, okay, this year I learned this, so next year I'm gonna have a great year. The next year, you're gonna learn another lesson. So it is a constant learning curve. There is no escaping the constant learning curve in growing. And you really need to just stay open to it and keep your eyes open and keep your observations and keep some records, and, you know, because it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it interesting. That's also what makes it really challenging. You know, is the variability from year to year, from variety to variety, from one technique to the next, and it can be really challenging. So this is in Fahrenheit. Store seeds are around 40 degrees Fahrenheit with low humidity, and the refrigerator is about that. So, you know, I've always sworn that what there needs to be is support groups for significant others of horticulturalists, because they come home and the fridge is now full of seeds.
Yeah,
Or-
my fridge is full of seeds.
Yeah,
There's no room
or
for anything else.
full of seeds that you're trying to break the
You know, the
double
fridge.
dormancy in, so they're in plastic containers, or you're wintering over Jerusalem artichokes to plant next year, and they're in there, so finally we got another fridge.
I know, there's only another fridge.
And it's in the shadow, don't run it all year, but it also comes in handy at harvest time, right? If frost is threatening, I can harvest a bunch of stuff, throw it in the fridge, you know, and it is not completely clogging up my fridge, so when I open it, it's an avalanche, right? So, but, yeah, so store it in the fridge, along with everything else. Seed of some plants can remain viable for up to 5 years. We talked about that earlier, how some seeds have viability for longer than others. It's nothing to do with the genetic modifications of seeds or anything. It just is that some seeds have a longer shelf life than others. Where the genetically modifying of seeds come in is that there's actually seeds that produce plants that will not produce viable seeds. And what do they call those, suicide seeds, or I can't remember.
Terminator seed.
Terminator seeds,
Yeah.
that's what they are. So some seeds are genetically modified so that you can't save the seeds from those plants because they won't grow.
Mhm.